Your experience matters. This is a phrase that's really been coming up a lot for me, and I just got back after having a wonderful morning and breakfast with an amazing friend. And it's been a culmination of our conversation today at breakfast, paired with actually a Netflix documentary that I watched last night, and months worth of little breadcrumbs that is bringing this concept really into focus for me. And I feel like it really started to drop in a couple months ago when I noticed this distinction between experience versus expertise, and how so much of this online space has become be the expert, be the thought leader, be the one who's known for this one thing. And so the content has then been very prescriptive in that way, right? Where you show up and you talk about what you know and you lay out the steps for people. And I feel like it's become very constrictive and limiting. And so I came to tuning in and into this platform to try my hand at something different. What would it look like if I just authentically shared? And what I realized that I was doing is sharing from experience. Not my way or the highway, not trying to tell you what to do, but by journaling and sharing that, and sharing the questions that are prompting myself, that could then prompt you too. And so once I started to see that distinction, my client Melissa and I then started to recognize, what does it look like even in an interview to go from, so how do you do this, and kind of the how and the what, to phrasing questions from the experience lens instead of that expertise lens, and saying, tell us about a time, or do you remember what that felt like, or asking more about those feelings. And so I feel like that seed was kind of the first one to be planted. And then more recently, I was listening to a fiction audiobook, The 7 Husbands of Evelyn Hugo. And there was a very specific line that catapulted and triggered this, or maybe helped that seed sprout, right? She talks about, non-related to the work that we do, but she talked about how she found her currency. She came from nothing. And in Hollywood, she found her currency, unfortunately, in her body. And there was something about the way that she phrased it where it made me think I would like currency in other ways. But when you don't have physical currency in the way that you want, how can you look and see what currency you do have? And so that was another thing where I was like, okay, where does my experience lead me over expertise? When you have a lived experience that you've gone through, that you can help other people through it too, one that you just have felt in the depths of your soul, how important that is to be able to share your experience and lead from experience versus expertise. I feel like there's such a greater depth and intentionality, and when you compare the two, when you compare people who are leading from knowledge but not experience versus people who have lived it and who have felt it and who have experienced it and had visceral reactions to these things, there's so much more depth and intentionality, and you just understand the why and you understand some intricacies. And I think it's impossible for any of us to have the same lived experiences, right? Like every millisecond of our day, even if you live it alongside your partner or your kids, we're all viewing it through different lenses. And so it's never going to be same, right? But that to me was like, oh my gosh, how important it is. and the gravity of people like us who are creatives and maybe haven't found our spot, our hub, our medium in order to share our experiences and be able to inspire and create community and even lead people when they have questions about something that you've gone through, that they're going through, and they just need to know. It's not that they need to know how, it's just that they need to feel seen and understood and just not alone, right? Like, connection is at the core of everything for everybody. And what a gift it is to be able to find a way to better connect ourselves to our experiences, but how important it is to be able to share your experiences to support others. And so when I think about myself and how important this work is and how I felt this impulse, and I've known I wanted to continue to talk and share and find a hub, a medium, a platform where I can do that in a way that makes sense. And I found that in Substack, and it just makes me think of how many creatives there are out there. And when I hear their experiences and their stories and what they're passionate about, and especially a lot lately, I've been hearing how people are like, I want to start a book, but I want to share my experiences, but I don't know how, I don't know where, I haven't found my spot yet. I just recognize my own experience in stepping into this creativity, and my experience with Substack, and my experience with finding a way that feels good for me to show up and share, and that I had never seen it elsewhere. The way that we can show up, this like missing business model that I've talked about. And so it just helps me feel and understand and be motivated to continue to share my experience and recognize the weight and the leadership that takes. And so maybe this can prompt you to think about and recognize that if you have an experience that you've gone through that you like just feel so in your gut that like it's something that you've been through that is worth sharing, I'm hoping that this helps encourage you to see how important it is to pass that story down, to share the experience, and to realize too that you don't have to come from that expertise world that we see so much, that your stories are the potency, your connection. That is where I feel like the depth and the weight and the leadership and the transformation happens. And that your worth doesn't have to be in teaching people how to do something, but your courage in showing up in that space, in that experience, in those people being able to see themselves. That's where the magic and the gold happens.